now it's time for Lipum, along with CEO Ola Sandborgh, to provide a presentation of the company. Welcome, Ola.
Thank you, Kevin, and nice to see you all here. I'm going to take the opportunity to give you a little bit of an update on where we are from Lipum's side when it comes to our unique treatment of chronic inflammatory diseases. And as you may know, our company is located in Umeå, and it's actually a Swedish biopharmaceutical company that was started in 2010, and we went public on the market in 2021. So we've been there for almost 4 years. The company vision is that we would like to empower active and fulfilling lives by transforming the quality of life for people with chronic inflammatory diseases. And the mission that will make this happen is that we should deliver a safer and more effective treatment that address the critical unmet needs in chronic inflammatory diseases. This is our focus. This is where we are spending all our time. I have to say that we've been really successful because up until today, we have had excellent results. And I'm going to share a little bit about this with you. And where we are, it's actually paving the way for going into the next clinical phase, which is phase 2. But a little bit, what is it all about? Well, our solution is that we have a completely new target in chronic inflammation that's normally called BSSL, or it stands for bile salt stimulated lipase. And this is something that we have identified, and it's been by the 3 founders of the company, Susanne, Olle, and Lennart, which is still active in Lipum. And this is novel, and it's something that has previously been an unexplored target driving chronic inflammation. And in order to be able to address this, we have developed the humanized antibody. We have done that together with SciLife Lab in Uppsala, and we call it SOL116. And this is an antibody that specifically goes towards neutralizing the effects of BSSL. And we believe that this is an innovative approach that could offer a safer and more effective and targeted treatment of these patients. And also good for you to know is that we have the product developed protected for years to come, and maybe the most important patent is the one that we have in the middle, which is for the anti-BSSL antibodies, where the priority year is 2020, which means that an expiry is likely to happen in 2040, so many years ahead from where we are right now. And what's really interesting with our research and our development program is that this antibody has a novel mode of action that most likely target 2 parallel pathways. And this is the current knowledge and the hypothesis that we're working from. So if you look on the left-hand side about immune modulation, we know that SOL116 inhibits the activity from the monocytes. They don't migrate into the joint, which means that it will also not cause the inflammation. So this is something that we have been able to prove, and it's also been repeated by the team at Karolinska, where we have a development project for this. But secondly, if you look on the right-hand side, we're talking about a modulation of the lipid metabolism. And this one is interesting because the bile salt stimulated lipase is actually lipase, which means that SOL116 could also be part of this modulation. And this is modulation we've seen before. For example, the corticosteroids and NSAIDs are already involved here, but we are upstream of those. So if this is also part of the mode of action, it could be really, really interesting to understand what the outcome could be. Because there is a need for improved treatments. I have to say that, well, of course, we had the old treatments, mainly methotrexate, which is the first-line treatment for these patients, but also the TNF-alpha inhibitors, the JAK inhibitors has been coming to the market over the last 15, 20 years, and they have improved the situation for these patients. It's no doubt about that. But anyway, we could see that there is still an unmet medical need that needs to be addressed. We could see that 30 to 40% of the patients failed to respond to the first-line treatment. We could also see that 35 to 40% of the patients lose efficacy over time, which means that about 3 out of 4 do not achieve a sustained remission. And also to add on top of this is that for the products that we have on the market, for example, the TNF-alpha inhibitors and the JAK inhibitors, there are black box warnings for certain subtypes of patients. For the JAK inhibitors, for example, patients with cardiovascular diseases that's underlying. So there is also areas where you can't use them. So there is a need for another treatment option, and that's actually what we are targeting with our program. And of course, it's an interesting area to go for. This market with rheumatoid arthritis, RA, is forecasted to be about $29 billion by 2029. And you could see from the the pie chart here that the blue parts, that's actually the TNF-alpha inhibitors and the biosimilars. So about 2/3 of this market in value comes from the TNF-alpha inhibitors. And they are growing. And we can clearly see that for those patients that don't respond to this treatment, there is a clear opening for SOL-116, which means that we could have a blockbuster potential. So that's something that we need to prove that our product really works in these type of patients. But just starting with the current results we have from the phase 1 study, the one that's been completed, and we presented a clinical study report just about 2 months ago. And this is a first-in-human study of SOL-116 in healthy volunteers and also in patients with rheumatoid arthritis. It was split into 3 different parts. One single ascending dose part, the blue boxes, where we could triple the dose between each of these cohorts. 8 individuals in each of them, 6 that received SOL and 2 that received placebo. And onto that, we could also look into a single dose in RA patients, 8 patients, and finally multiple dosing in another 8 healthy volunteers that were given 4 consecutive doses, 28 days apart. Classical study design, the focus is always on safety and tolerability. That's the primary objective. The secondary objective was to a little bit assess the pharmacokinetics. And finally, we also looked for explorative objective that was to understand the effect there might be of SOL-116 on bile salt stimulated lipase. And for the conclusion, just to keep it short here, is that the phase 1 study confirmed that we have safety and tolerability and predictable pharmacokinetics. We could also see that we effectively suppressed BSSL in those healthy volunteers and RA patients where we could measure levels. Also, when it comes to development of anti-drug antibodies, it was detected in only 1 out of the 336 post-dose samples from these 56 subjects. So what we have altogether here is a really, really strong rationale for advancing to a phase 2 proof of concept study, and that's what we're planning for right now. Just listening to specialists within this area, we performed the market research in the US half year ago, and it's very, very clear that they see a really interesting potential in our product when it comes to the mode of action, when it comes to meeting this unmet medical need that I just talked about before. And it could also be possible to set a new standard for RA management in these patients where they don't have any product could help them. So where we currently are in 2025 is that you can see on the top that we have been starting the planning on the phase 2 study, a study that we assume could be started in the first half of next year. In parallel with that, you can see in the bottom in the gray bars that we already in April last year started the manufacturing of the study drug. So that one needs to be done in parallel with the study planning. Everything needs to be in place for the clinical trial to be approved by the regulatory authorities. But as always, we work with different non-clinical or preclinical programs to assist and learn more about this area, because now we've been talking about rheumatoid arthritis patients, but definitely this product could be used in other disorders as well. That's very common for these kind of medications. I would like to highlight 2 specific projects that we have, and it's in the middle, the 2 blue bars. And the first one is the collaboration we have with support from SweLife, where we're working together with the Linköping University and Karolinska Institutet to find out biomarkers that could be to identify patients that would be likely to respond to the treatment with SOL-116. On top of this, we also received a grant from Eurostars in December last year, where we have a project where we are trying to develop a companion diagnostic together with the Norwegian company H-Labs. And this one is really, really interesting because in this case, we could support the wish from the market to really find out what patients could be treated with this product and who are the ones that are likely to receive the expected effect of the treatment, just to see that you get value for money for the investment that they will do. So 2 really interesting projects. For the one in Linköping, we're going to have the result fairly soon, but when it comes to Eurostars and H-Labs, it's going to be there all up until the end of 2027, which is a little bit the same time as we assume that the proof of concept study, the phase 2 proof of concept study in RA will also be completed. So looking into where we are for this year, as already said, we had the data coming out from the phase 1 study. We have been working with the mode of action publications that will most likely come now in the 3rd or 4th quarter this year, and this is done in collaboration with Ben Sereti and the team at Karolinska Institutet. We also always look into different patient subtypes where we could be using our product for supporting their need. So in that case, we have been looking into different biobank data to see what indications might be interesting for treatment with SOL-116. And as already said, well, the phase 2 proof of concept program is something that will start next year. But what we're doing here is a lot of preparations. We're going to have a meeting with the Swedish MPA. It's going to be a selection of the CRO that's going to perform the clinical trial. And as always, we need to submit to get an approval for the study. And also, equally important is to have study drug available, because otherwise, how could we perform the study? But for 2026 and 2027, well, that's the time when we're going to get the really, really interesting answer. And that's something that I've always been getting the question, does it work in patients? Well, that's what we're trying to prove with this phase 2 study, to really tell that this product is, with a novel mode of action, really, really good for these patients. And as I said before, the companion diagnostic will be there in parallel with the phase 2 study. And something that's always on my to-do list, that's discussions with partners, because going forward after phase 2 is something where it's really, really important to have a partner to support us in the development before we can go to market. So in summary, well, we can see that we have a completely new target with BSSL, and we have what's needed to go into this field, and we have developed the humanized antibody called SOL-116. We have successfully completed the phase 1 study with excellent results. And as I said, well, we are planning for the proof of concept phase 2 study in rheumatoid arthritis as a model indication. So that's what's going to start from next year. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ola, for a great presentation. Now, as you mentioned, you reported the positive final results from the phase 1 study with SOL-116, with the lab exploratory endpoint suggesting a successful suppression of BSSL. Could you begin by elaborating a bit about the importance of this?
Well, phase 1 study, of course, safety, tolerability and pharmacokinetics, that's key. But from our end, with this completely new mode of action, talking about BSSL, it would be really good to see such early in time if we really can do something when you could measure BSSL. So for a little bit more than 50% of these individuals that were enrolled, we could measure BSSL levels. And also when we gave them the antibody, it immediately dropped down to non-measurable levels, which wasn't the case for the one that received placebo. And just remember, these patients, they weren't ill at all. So it was a question, should they at all have BSSL levels or not? But they had to a certain extent, which was measurable. And really, really rewarding that we had this answer to our question.
And do you expect that this will be able to be translated into RA patients as well?
Well, that's what we've seen in all the preclinical work, that you could see elevated BSSL levels in patients with RA, and it's also linked to the disease severity and disease activity. So we believe that once that we will study patients and treat them with SOL-116, and when you have an ongoing inflammation, well, then we believe we should see the effect. Otherwise, well, it doesn't work, the mode of action. But anyway, that's what we expect to see.
Let's hope that's the case. Now, SOL-116 is obviously entering a critical phase right now with the upcoming phase 2 trials. Now, can you elaborate a bit on the remaining sort of preparations? Obviously, you've started preparations already, but choosing a CRO and finalizing the study design.
Well, as I said, manufacturing of study drug on the way, always on the timeline, targeting the right date. We have been developing a study design. We have a synopsis in place. We have sent out an RFP, request for proposal, to different CROs. Right now, we have 5 lining up, giving the first proposal in what way they could support us. Soon there will be 3, and in the end, I believe after summer, it will be 1 only. And that's the CRO that's been selected to be there together with us. And also that's a really important part going forward with finalizing the submission of the application to the regulatory authority that's targeted to take place by the end of this year. And that will also be accompanied with the study drug that needs to be in place with stability testing and so on. So everything is done in parallel, but right now it looks really, really good to reach that target date that we set up, which is in December.
And talking about the regulatory process, do you view that the sort of regulatory hurdles are extensive, or do you expect it to be a smooth sort of sail ahead?
Well, it's hard to say if it will be smooth or not, but anyway, what we have right now is really, really solid data supporting that we have a safe and well-tolerated product. Looking into the PK, it was like more or less taken out of a textbook. So we have what's needed to ask for this, but it's also a question about the design of the study, the dose that we've been choosing to study. That needs to be in discussion with the regulatory authority. But given our expertise and experience we have within the team, we feel confident that this should be not a smooth way ahead, but anyway, we don't see any real complications that could be in front of us, but you never know. But hopefully it will be good and quick.
Now, you also mentioned during the presentation that there is a potential for exploring new indications beyond RA. What's the timeline for those sort of decisions, and what indications are currently under consideration?
Well, I would say that we don't want to mess up the development program too much right now. So the focus is solely on rheumatoid arthritis. And as I said, it's the model indication. So if we can prove that the product works there, then we have a really good starting point. But in parallel, we're looking into different indications. We already, by last year, got a new IP coming up, and that's for the treatment of cancer. But also when looking into these more classical rheumatical disorders, we have been looking into rheumatism among children or juvenile idiopathic arthritis. We have a project together with Uppsala University. I mentioned about Linköping, where we're looking on early RA patients, in what way they could be helped with this. But also we have another project that we've done together with the team down in Lund, and it's about SLE-related arthritis as well. So we're trying to widen as much as we can, and well, it's a question about having the funding in place as well as time. But the main focus is on RA right now to get a true answer about the mode of action, and it works for this kind of inflammations.
And similar to that, you also mentioned some other sort of non-clinical programs outside of the RA program. Could you, what can we expect from these additional programs?
Well, hopefully it would be a help for the end user, so to say. So once that we're taking the product to the market, it could be tools or different diagnostic parameters that you could be using in order to select the right patients to be treated with SOL-116, the ones where you could believe that you will also have the desired effect of the treatment. But it could be used even earlier. For example, in the phase 3 program, it could be that you're trying to select patients to be enrolled into the study because they present with increased BSSL levels, and by that we could also compare it to the more hard-to-treat patients. So there are different ways to benefit from this, but definitely something that's right in time, and I believe that when we could be on the market in 2030 or something, that's something that will be highly appreciated.
And if we're switching focus to sort of the financial side of things, with a runway extending into Q3 this year, are you sort of looking to raise capital to extend the cash position right now?
I always look to raise capital, Kevin. But anyway, I get your question, and of course, what we need to do, and it's a little bit related back to that, we have a phase 2 study. If you should start the study, you need to have it fully funded. Otherwise, the regulatory would never approve it. And the same goes, you need to have sufficient amount of study drug for the study. So, of course, we're trying to find the amount of capital needed in order to secure that we can run the study. And that's a work that's been ongoing right now. And we also target to get it in place by after summer, I would say. Yeah.
I understand. That was all the questions we had for today. So I want to thank you, Ola, for a great presentation.
Thank you very much, Kevin.